and welcome you to the NCEES end of year principal and assistant principal evaluation process. And we do have a bit.ly, and I will put that back in the chat shortly. It is bit.ly/20-21 NCEES, NCEES principal, PRINCIPALEOY. So we're going over the end of year process, and that bit.ly is for if you would like a copy of the slide deck. All right. So I am Cami Nair, and I am your NCEES Education Product Consultant on the home-based team for digital teaching and learning. And I am joined today by Dr. Kimberly Simmons. If you'd like to say hello, Kim.
Hi, Cami. Thanks for having me today. I'm happy to see everybody that's joined us. It's always exciting to talk about wrapping up the school year.
Yes. Thank you, Kim. And of course, we also have Dr. Robert Sachs. He is our NCEES business owner, guru on everything NCEES as far as policy, as well as Dr. Simmons is as well. So I appreciate the team that we have for you guys. So today's webinar, we're asking you to minimize your outside distractions, participate and be attentive. You can use the chat bubble on your dashboard. You can find it either at the bottom of your dashboard, or it may have be hiding at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on how you join the system. There is a Q&A as well, but we like for most of your questions to come in the chat. And when you send it to somebody, when you're scrolling, make sure you select to everyone, unless of course you have a question just for Kim or just for I or something like that. If you post it to everyone, others have the same questions usually, so that's very helpful. And you can keep your microphone muted. Video is not needed today. Today we're going to be talking about accessing the NCEES system. This is going to be two parts. So if you're the evaluator of a principal, that will come in the last 2/3 to a half of today's session. The first half, we're going to review the principal's duties to complete the teacher and support staff plans. And then we're also going to look further into the principal plans in the second half, as I said, how to complete that summary evaluation to assess and complete your next year goals, and to complete any written responses that you'd like to do, and then show you how different folks can run end of year reports and offer you some additional resources. There will be a follow-up email to go out within 1 week after we end the webinar today. There will be a link in there, and we'll share this link at the end of the session today as well, for the NCEES feedback survey. Once you complete that survey, we do welcome your good items and bad items, things we can do to improve, or things that we're doing good, and additional items you'd like to see in webinars. So please enter your comments in that feedback survey, and then it will send you a link to receive your certificate. We did have to switch how we send those out, so you will receive a certificate with today's session printed on it, but you will need to enter your name and then save it or print it out. There will also be a link to the recording of today's webinar, a link to any resources that we discussed today, and any answers to any questions remaining from our webinar or asked after the webinar. All right, so let's get right into our presentation today. We're going to look at accessing your NCEES system, and we're pretty handy at this by now as we're getting towards the end of the year. Of course, in North Carolina public and charter schools, you're going in through our single sign-on system. It's known by several different names: NCEES Cloud, IAM, Rapid Identity. You're going to log in with your username, which is your UID, and then your UID password. And once you're in there, your dashboard should load up several icons, and you're looking for the NCEES icon. It looks like a PowerSchool blue, cyan blue letter P with the word NCEES underneath. Principals, your home page, your landing page will look like this. In the top right corner, you have some icons to access the PowerSchool help under the question mark, any calendar items that have been entered, and the envelope is for any messages that have been sent out through the system. and then your details are under your initials in the blue circle. We did update the help guides page this year. Anything you'd like to make this easier for you to find what you need, let me know, and I'm happy to update this page. This year we did divide out your plan help guides into the plan types so that it might be a little bit easier for your teachers and support staff to find what they need. And then over on the right, you see we have district administrator and site administrator help guides. And of course, there's also professional development help guides on this page as well. So we're going to jump right into the teacher and support staff evaluation process. And I'll turn this over to Kim.
Thanks, Cammie. And I put a link to this teacher evaluation process in the chat bar, and I'll continue to put links in for you guys as we progress throughout the presentation. But here you have on the screen is the teacher evaluation process one-pager that can be found on page 21 of the manual. And like I just reminded, I put a link in our chat bar. But our focus today will be mostly on step 4 you see in the in light blue, and that's the evaluation and the goal setting. But let's take just a minute to review the information in step 3, which you see in the bottom right hand corner in pink, just to ensure that we're wrapping up our observation cycle. So step 3, the observation cycle, includes component 5 and 6, which is the observations and the post-observation conference. So by this time of year, you should be in the final round of your observations in order to have enough time to coach teachers and growth and improvement of practice. As a reminder, the only difference between the formal and informal observations is the time. Informal are at least 20 minutes, and formal observations last 45 minutes or the entire class period. So teachers with less than 3 years employment are on the comprehensive evaluation cycle, and teachers with more than 3 years employment are on the standard cycle or abbreviated cycle. And the abbreviated observation, I'm just trying to point out some of the things that are good reminders as we wrap this up. An abbreviated observation may be formal or informal. That's just a reminder as well. And then for component 6, the post-observation conference, they should be within 10 school days after each formal observation. So what that tells us is we're not required to have a post-observation conference for informal observations. And that's a question that always comes up this time of year. But if you do not have your post-observation conference within 10 days, we strongly recommend that you do another observation, because the feedback that you would be giving becomes irrelevant after 10 days, making the process less meaningful and less effective. So post-observations, again, are not required for informal observations, but are recommended so principals and teachers have an opportunity to discuss best practices. Here's a chart that really outlines the comprehensive evaluation cycle, standard and abbreviated. And I'll put a link to this also in the chat bar as soon as my part finishes. But this is a great one-pager reference, again, for you to have. As a brief review, the year-long process, remember this, is a series of formative assessments or observations where data is collected on the observation rubric. And then at the end of the year, all of the data is considered from all the observations, including how many times throughout the year each item on the rubric, each descriptor, was noted. And this informs the end of the year summative evaluation. And so that's where our main focus for today will be, and that's on standard 4, component 7, the summary evaluation conference, and scoring the teacher summary rating form. Prior to the end of the school year, and in accordance with LEA timelines, the principal shall conduct a summary evaluation conference with the teacher to discuss components of the evaluation cycle type used, comprehensive or standard, and at the conclusion, they should complete these things. A, give a rating for each element in the rubric. B, make a written comment on any element marked not demonstrated. C, give an overall rating of each standard on the rubric. D, provide the teacher with the opportunity to add comments to the teacher summary end of the year rating form. E, to review the completed teacher summary end of the year rating form with the teacher. And then lastly, secure the teacher's signature on the record of teacher evaluation activities and the teacher summary end of the year rating form. So let's look a little bit closer at C, giving the overall ratings. So when determining the rating for each element, and I guess we would back up to, it's not, sorry about that. It's not C, it would be backing up to A. Yeah, we'll start with giving the element ratings. So when determining the rating for each element, your principal will identify the, are we on the next, let's go to the next slide.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. When determining the rating for each element, your principal will identify the first descriptor that has not been marked throughout the year. Here it has been, you have a red circle around it, and the rating for an element is the lowest rubric column category for which all descriptors were observed at least once during the evaluation cycle. The rating element 1A would be developing. Maybe click again.
There we go.
There we go. So we see we look where we do not have any ratings, any descriptors filled in, and then we back up to the last column where they were all observed at least once, and the rating here, the element rating would be developing. Thanks, Cammie. On the bottom of the screen, you see standard 1 of the summary rating sheet for teachers. You should mark developing for 1A, leads in the classroom. And then the same process is applied throughout for each element. For element 1B, teachers demonstrate leadership in the school, the rating would be proficient. So I want to pause here for just a minute to make sure we answer any questions, and I don't see any.
Not seeing any questions, Kim.
Okay, good. We'll keep going, and if you do have questions, just put them in the chat bar. So again, Cammie, oh, there it's coming up. After each rating for each element are completed, an overall rating for each standard is determined. So when determining the summary evaluation, and this is straight from page 36 of the manual, teachers may attach comments and/or artifacts to be considered for the evaluator before marking the final standard ratings. That's very important. The teacher should have that opportunity. Also, for each standard 1 through 5, the evaluator makes a reasonable assessment based upon evidence, and that means considering the element ratings derived from the observations and any or other all relevant information that can help inform the rating of the overall standard. And now that's a big difference in the ratings between the elements and the standards. The ratings for the elements are determined based on the number of marks they received on each descriptor. But when a principal is determining the rating for the standard, they have the opportunity to consider additional data in addition to the element ratings. The next bullet says comments should be written in all sections to support or reflect the rating, and the teacher signature indicates observation has been reviewed, and the evaluator signature indicates the observation was reviewed and the process was followed. Again, another question that comes up, sometimes teachers are hesitant to sign their summary rating, their summative evaluation, and the signature does not mean that you agree with it. It just means that the process has occurred and it has been shared with you. So let's take a look at standard 4. Remember, you are rating a teacher based on where they are at the time of the summative evaluation. So one might question the reason for the rating for this teacher. The overall rating for standard 4 here is developing, and you see that there has been 3 of the elements ratings at developing, and then we have 5 at proficient. So why would the principal have chosen to give a developing rating here? And I just wanted to provide some reasons. It could be that again, you're rating the teacher based on where they are at the time of the summative evaluation at the end of the year. So this teacher may still be developing in the eyes of the principal, or the principal may consider the overall improvement efforts of the teacher based on the feedback and coaching conversations that they've had, that they just haven't shown that growth that they should have. Even though these descriptors were marked, there could be additional data that they considered. This is just for your information. The directions for completing the end of the year final summary evaluation is located on page 36 of the teacher evaluation manual. And we'll make sure you get a link to that as well. Finally, we have component 8, the PD plans, and this is the second part of step 4, the goal setting. So to the right, we have a completed summary rating sheet for teachers, and we must determine which of the PD plans the teacher will complete for the next school year. So to the left, you have each of the different PDP plans, the individual growth plan, which means the teacher received proficient or better as a rating for all 5 standards. To be on the monitored growth plan for the next school year, this would be the teacher that has at least 1 developing rating for one of the 5 standards. And a directed plan would be for the teacher that was rated not demonstrated or developing for 2 sequential years. So since this teacher has a rating of developing for standard 4, they would be on a monitored growth plan. And now let's look more closely at what that actually means, the difference between the monitored, the individual, the monitored, and the directed. So as I just reviewed, we know that the ratings determine which plan that a teacher would be on, but what happens as a result of being on a particular plan? For the individual PDP, that means that the teacher develops their individual goals for growth and then meets with the principal or administrator 3 times throughout the year to discuss. For the monitored PDP, it's a bit different. The administrator and the teacher meet together to discuss and develop the goals for the teacher for the next school year. And they would meet at least 3 times during the school year, but we recommend quarterly or every 6 weeks to keep tighter communication. And then for the directed PDP, the administrator develops the goals for the teacher based on observations and documentation, and then is required to meet with the teacher to review the plan at least 3 times during the school year, but we recommend monthly meetings to discuss the teacher growth. Also, as a reminder, the monitored or directed plan so you might be considered as a plan for dismissal, and it is not. These plans are all about growth. Our entire evaluation system is about growth. So this does not mean that you're being recommended for dismissal, demotion, or non-renewal at this time, unless your local board policy specifically says that they are using the monitored or directed plan as their plan for dismissal.
Okay, do we have any questions before we move on to the teacher support staff summary evaluation? Okay. All right, so this is just a quick view for you to see the observations must be completed before that summary evaluation will be accessible in the online tool. So for the comprehensive plan, you must have observations 1, 2, and 3, and a required peer observation completed before you can lock all the activities and that summary will open. For the standard plan, it's going to be observations 1, 2, and 3. Peer is optional, so once you complete the observations 3 and lock those activities, your summary evaluation will open. And for abbreviated, it just takes observation 1 and 2. And for staff that you've placed on the late hire plan, You really only require observation 1 to open that summary evaluation. Now, of course, you can do any of the optional observations or peer observations, but these are the ones that are required to open that summary evaluation. So you want to know where people are at with completing and locking those observations. There are several different areas in the NCEES system that you can find this. Down at the bottom of this screen, when you've navigated to staff evaluations, you can actually see the green checks and the lock marks once those observations have been completed. That's probably a little small on your screen, but I've got this arrow pointing. There's a green check mark with a lock icon. So this first person has had observation 1 and 2 done. They're on an abbreviated plan. So you can see that they've accessed their summary evaluation and it is in progress. That's a quick way to see. There is an evaluation completion status report under this graph icon that many of the district administrators and maybe some of the principals are running out there. On the reporting tab that site administrators and district administrators have access to, I have published several reports, summary reports, and this is the titles of them. You go to reporting tab, you look in the channel called My Ad Hoc Reports. You expand that channel out and then click Show All to see all the reports that are published that you can run. New at the beginning of this year, per the request of a couple districts, we've also added under reporting, under the Quick Reports module, you'll now also find an activity lock report. So these are good reports to see where are my staff and status as far as getting ready for that summary evaluation. Now to get into the summary evaluation, administrators are going to go to staff evaluations. You're going to search for that staff name or scroll through the list to find that staff name. You're going to click on their name to open the plan. And then you're going to scroll down to your summary evaluation channel. And here I have a picture of that channel on the page. We can see that observation 3 has been completed. The record of evaluation activities we'll talk about later. There's your summary evaluation channel. And here are the activities in the bottom right. So we have the summary evaluation form, the evaluation conference that takes place, and then where the evaluator acknowledges, and then the summary evaluation conference where the teacher acknowledges. So let's take a look at the order of the steps for that summary evaluation. It does start with the evaluator to do the summary evaluation form, and then hold that summary evaluation conference with the teacher or support staff. You will, once that's been completed and the teacher has had time to supply any additional artifacts or make comments or written responses, then the teacher can also acknowledge. The written response is always open. The teachers can, support staff can use written responses at any point. They have several choices in their drop down in the written response as to why they're sending a written response. The evaluator will get an email that says you have a written response that you need to acknowledge. And then when the evaluator goes in the system, they'll edit that written response acknowledgement. And you must check that yes box. Sometimes it's possible to close that box out without checking the yes box. So please do, if you're acknowledging this, please check the yes box. Once everybody's satisfied with the completion of the summary evaluation, the evaluator can then lock the summary container. So here's what an observation scoring summary looks like. We're navigating now to the record of teacher evaluation activities, and we're moving through this kind of fast. We did hold a webinar last week about all these steps in detail, so please check that webinar out. It is posted on our information and resources Google site and also on our NCEES YouTube site. So here's the observation scoring summary, just real quick. Under the little arrows over here, you can print out the feedback. Down below, you see the tallies of the number of observations. So up here, I'm showing 2 observations have been completed, and then how many tally marks were entered in each of these status areas So here there's 2 and 2, 2 and 2 and 2, and then zeros over here. If you want to see what was entered only in observation 1, you'll just uncheck the box under the by. So the by lists who did the observation. I've got that blanked out right now. But there's a checkbox that you can uncheck, and then you're only seeing the record line for the one that remains checked. Also in that channel is your Record of Evaluation Activities report. This has an area where the evaluator can edit and enter the teacher background. It's also a good place for administrators to put notes about staff, like we've moved this staff to a monitor PDP, or this teacher was on a leave and has come back and we're completing, that's why we had a break in the evaluation plan, things like that. This is just a sample of what that record of activities looks like. It will have signatures and who did the signature for each of the steps that have been completed. And then here is that reporting tab and the quick reports module that you'll select in the reporting area. You select quick reports and all your summary reports are here. That activity lock report is right above these reports that you're currently seeing. The standard ratings reports, you guys can't run those. That's for DPI. We run those at the very end of the year, and they get sent to our team that handles the EVOS data. All right, teacher and support staff PDP plan, the professional development plan. We're going to head into that. I don't see any questions coming in. So you're going to verify the lock activities the same way with the PDP. You can use your filters on this staff evaluation page here at the bottom of the screen. There's an add filter, and I've added one for the PDP end of year review, and I wanted to see all the ones that are completed. So now I have a list of who is completed. You can do not equal to completed, and you'll get a list of everybody that has not completed that activity. There is also a locking summary ad hoc report as well on the ad hoc under reporting. And quickly, let's look at the PDP review cycle. This PDP cycle starts with the teacher or support staff. They must enter their PDP details, and in this case, it would be the end of year review details. So they would enter that first, and then the evaluator goes in and they check and set the goal progress. Was the goal successfully completed, yes or no? You can enter any new comments for the evaluator at the end of the year. If this is a beginning teacher that's on a comprehensive plan, then a mentor has probably been assigned, and they must do that mentor signature. This is a requirement for beginning teachers. However, the system does not make this step required in the online tool, because other staff that are on comprehensive plan that are not beginning teachers do not need this mentor signature. So this is one that you need to keep up with your staff and know which ones need that mentor signature, because you are able to lock the activity without the mentor signature in place. And then you have to go back and ask your district administrator to reopen that activity so the mentor can sign. So please keep up with your list of who has mentors so that that mentor signature can be in place. And then fourth, the teacher signature happens. Once everything's in place, the evaluator can then lock this activity. Any questions? Okay, and there's just another reminder about the mentor signature step. And this plan also has a PDP record of activities, has the same teacher background area you can put notes in. It actually has 4 record of activities. There's the overall view, an initial, mid-year, and end of year review that you can print out. Okay, any questions about what the principal needs to do for the teachers and support staff here towards the end of the year for that final observation and then the summary evaluation? All right, don't see any questions coming in. We're going to move on to the principal and assistant principal evaluation process. Turn this back over to Kim.
Thanks, Cammie. So here you see another chart, much like it looks different than the teacher evaluation, but it's created as a one-pager for you to outline the principal evaluation process. So this was developed, like I mentioned, for your convenience, and it's so that you can see all 7 steps of the process and identify optional forms and required documents. So today we will be focusing on steps 6 and 7 of the evaluation cycle. So as a reminder, let's take note of the key in the top right-hand corner where you see anything in red. That means it's a required document. So if we look here, just as a reminder, there's only 2 required documents for your principal evaluation, and that is the self-assessment and the summary evaluation form or rubric completed at the end of the year. And then you see for green items, those are to identify optional forms to support the process, and we highly recommend the use of these optional forms. And then anything you see in black is a required process. And again, just as a reminder that this chart is created using data outlined by the North Carolina State Board of Education evaluation policy for principals. So let's look closer at step 6, prepare a consolidated performance assessment. And this should happen at the end of the school year. This is so that the principal can synthesize the information obtained under steps 4 and 5, the data collection and the mid-year conference. This brief summary, and you might want to identify with your evaluator, if you're a principal or assistant principal, how long they may want this to be or what all they may want to be in this consolidated performance assessment. And that's a good discussion point to have at the beginning of the year. But before entering this and grappling with it much, I would certainly reach out and discuss, or during that mid-year conference, discuss the expectations of the consolidated performance assessment. But this brief summary of data and artifacts is used to judge performance. It should be provided to the superintendent or the designee or whoever is your evaluator well in advance of the performance discussion, at which time the final performance levels would be discussed. So you want to make sure they have this information and time to review it, maybe ask questions, maybe seek additional information, but that's just good practice.
Okay, we're going to move on to principal and assistant principal data collation. And Kim, I see there's an issue with that last link. I know you'll check that and
okay,
post the link if you got another link. Yeah.
Thank you. I will fix that and get another one for you.
All right, so we're moving back into the NCEES online tool, and this is your data collection channel. When you've opened your principal plan, you'll see this pre-evaluation, your initial meeting, and here's the data collection channel. And inside the data collection channel are 2 areas, your artifacts and notes and your rubric. So we're talking about collecting data, so that would go into your artifacts and notes. Principals only see the artifacts and notes in the rubric. Evaluators, you'll also see artifacts and notes, which are shared with your principal. You have your evaluator notes, which are private to the evaluator. And then the rubric, well, of course, that rubric will get filled out. So how to add the artifacts in the data collection? You're going to open up the artifacts and notes, and you're going to select new notes. And then you're going to type in a description and describe the artifact with a comment. And then on the right, if it aligns with a standard or an element of a standard, you can check as many as applies. And then when you're done, you're going to click done. And then it will open up this screen with your comment entered, any tags that you've had. And if you have an attachment to add, notice that you have to click done first, and then you'll see the link to the attach a file. There is a 20 megabyte file size limit on any files attached. Okay. If we don't have any questions about adding notes and artifacts, we're going to move on to The Consolidate Performance Assessment. It is in your end of year review channel, and it is called Consolidated Performance Assessment. It is required. Anything with an asterisk in NCEES is required activity. So when you click into that, you're going to enter any, this is another area you can add those additional artifacts. Besides in the notes and artifacts, you can add them inside your Consolidated Performance Assessment as well. So let's just look overall about what we just talked about. Here's that end of year review. Your Consolidated Performance Assessment is required. And then principals and APs, Kim just talked about preparing that consolidated assessment or comprehensive view of your performance throughout that year. Check with your evaluator on how long that should be. And then comes the end of year review and with the evaluator, and the evaluator must set the status of the goal progression and completion and add any end of year review comments. After the discussion with the principal would then have the ability to sign off. Once these other green checks are in place, the principal then acknowledges the process as well. So moving into complete the summary evaluation, I'm going to turn this back over to Kim.
So step 7, thank you, Cammie. The summary evaluation conference is the final step in the principal evaluation process. The conference should take place at the school site and include the self-assessment, the consolidated performance assessment, and the summary evaluation form or rubric. I always have questions regarding what is required. So again, you can see the required documents in red for step 7.
Thank you, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so going back into our NCEES system, we've gone back in and opened up that principal plan again, and we're scrolling down to the summary evaluation channel. And it contains 5 activities. You're gonna click anywhere in the channel to open it up. And then it's gonna show in progress. You're gonna have the summary evaluation information to do, the summary evaluation rubric, the summary evaluation evaluator signature, and then the summary evaluation, the principal or assistant principal, whoever's getting evaluated, then signs off as well. And at the bottom of the screen is your next year goals area. Notice it is not a required area. You can access your next year goals at any point in time. So to go into the summary evaluation form, the evaluator does that first, and they click edit to enter the required data. And here we see that is your summary evaluation date, your evaluator's title, and your evaluator's name are required areas that need to be entered in this edit section. Once that evaluation information is entered, then you can access the summary evaluation rubric. These dates are in here, but it still applies for 2020, 2021. The evaluator clicks to open the rubric, and he'll see a Start New button to be able to enter the tally marks for the principal standards. All right, and then once all those are entered into that rubric, and you guys let us know if you have any questions about that step, the summary evaluation evaluator signature takes place with the principal. And then the principal signs off on the evaluation. And finally, just a quick review where you're going to access and complete next year goals. And this you may want to have in place before you have this conference. So you can access next year goals at any point here. You'll just click on that, the principals will, and they will click edit, and then you'll have a window pop open where you set your goals like you did at the beginning of the year. Principals, you also have the right, like the teachers and support staff do, to complete written responses. So you have a written response channel, and in here is the written responses that you're going to click. Once you've entered your written response, you're going to click edit. Then you're going to say, this response is concerning my, and you're going to select initial meeting, mid-year conference, end-of-year review, or summary evaluation. Once you've selected that, then you're going to enter, you're required to enter a written response. So put in your notes there to the evaluator, and then you're going to click save if you're ready to send it, or save and exit, or cancel if you don't want to send it. If you've sent it, then the evaluator gets an email and they must acknowledge the written response. And so they will open it up and see that this was a written response for a summary evaluation. It was based on the summary evaluation, and the evaluator then must check the box saying, I have received this, and acknowledge that they received it, and then click save. So this year, our end of year process for 2020-2021 school year is tentatively set to close Wednesday, June 30th at 5 p.m. SIS has been, the Student Information System has been looking at possibly being a couple days earlier than this. So stay tuned. Right now, NCEES is looking at, always used the last day, June 30th. However, we urge you to complete your evaluations earlier than that, so that you have time to run the reports that are needed prior to the end of the year. We always stress running reports in NCEES that you're going to need for the summer and for next year to help determine plan types, or to give your superintendent or directors data that they're requesting. Those are best run before the school year closes out. NCEES is pretty much a current year system. You can run data next year. You can run last year data, but the standard ratings will match up with the person, but their current location will show if they've changed schools and things like that. So we always urge you to run reports before the end of the year closes out. So a lot of large districts will be wrapping up by the end of April. So check with your planners and see when they would like to have you in your district be done with your evaluations and professional development plans. Just a quick checklist, confirm your staff lists are accurate. If you're hiring new staff for next year, your HR department can upload them to UID, but they should upload them as inactive so that they don't show up as in NCEES as needing an evaluation here at the end of the year. So then once July 1st rolls around, those new staff can then be uploaded as active for your school. But for now, if you're hiring new staff, please advise your HR not to make them active. Make sure what you currently see in there is correct. Delete or archive any unnecessary evaluation plans. If there are extra plans out there that are blank and we really don't have a report for you guys to show that, but your users will see their blank plans, that as long as they leave them blank, they'll be removed in the process and not be archived. Confirm that your evaluation and PDP plans are complete. And then, of course, we stress that you run any end of year reports, your summaries, especially your summary ratings and things like that, prior to the end of June 30th, 2021. And I see we have a question. It says, are next year goals required before the end of the year, or can it be entered at the beginning of the next year in case some roles are changed or removed? Kim, did you want to answer that? Because I think that's like an optional worksheet. The next year goals.
That's really a local decision.
Okay.
Is that correct? What does the system permit?
The system does not require the next year goals. And I know in, let me see if I can go back. So your next year goals, these are your required steps. So you don't have like a little flower out here that says you must do this. But it was advised to do next year goals, right, Kim, to help?
Yes, it is, because the next year goals should be reflective of the summative evaluation, and what better time to create those goals than, you know, right when you've discussed that summary evaluation document, you know what your ratings are, And that's why we suggest it. And you can always go back and change your goals at the beginning of the next school year.
Right, because this is just for your information purposes only, I believe, because it will not feed into next year plans. You're still going to have to set your goals when you set up your next year plan.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is a good time to do it, like Kim said, while the summary evaluation is fresh in your mind. There's a question that says, please, that you indicated to please ask HR not to make any new hires active. I mean, new hires for 2021-22. So anybody that you're hiring now for next year, and I know some districts have started doing that. Every year we have payroll uploading them as active, not on purpose, but they get uploaded as active when they're actually not starting until the summer. So that is not in relation to your late hires. It's in relation to any new people for next school year. Thank you for that question, so we could clarify that. All right. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Let's see where we're at. All right, so let's look at a few additional resources, and we're making good time. We have about 10 minutes left. So if you have any other questions, please get those in. If you'd like to see anything live in the NCEES system, let me know and we can pop over there. And probably look at some practice accounts that I have out there if you have a question about principal plans. So here's our NCEES Google site. Dr. Simmons set this up, and I think it's a wonderful resource for you guys. Here's your manual for the principal, and if you click on that, you're going to find also, as you scroll down the page, not only the manual, but all those resources, probably pretty much some of those that Kim has linked in the chat today will be available out there as well. You can look on our webinar pages and get the recordings. So like we did last week, we did the teacher end of year. So if you missed that, please go check that out. And then, of course, if you're having any issues, you have a designated staff or maybe more than one designated staff that has the rights to open tickets with DPI. So just go ahead and have them do that. If you're a teacher, you should contact your principal first or your NCEES lead, and then they can contact your district's designated staff to open tickets with DPI. Okay, I see a question. Is there a cutoff date that you would not develop and complete a NCEES, I'm just guessing, evaluation for a teacher, like a new hire in April? So Dr. Sox usually answers that better than I do. It depends on how much time you have, because you have so many days, because you can use that late hire plan. It only requires the one observation. Kim, did you have any comments about that?
No, I do not. Is there an exact number of dates? Is that something we need to find out?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't want to speak incorrectly with Dr. Sox. I think he's kind of answered that before about how many days.
Let's do a follow-up in the email we send. Let's follow up with very specific information there. Again, that's one of those blurry areas that is a local decision, but we do have a day number where that we need for credit for the year. Yep. We need some information.
Yes, we'll follow up on that one. And I'll put it up in our follow-up email. And then there's a question, is there a way to transfer information between plan types when an incorrect plan is started? And I'm sorry to say no. It's just a copy and paste. You're going to assign the new plan, advise the teacher or support staff or to start the new plan. In fact, I just had a call from a district today. They couldn't see the new plan that was assigned. It was because the teacher had not started it. And then everybody can either just copy and paste back and forth until all the information is re-entered in the new plan. And then the district administrator in the district can archive the old plan so that the teacher then only sees the current new plan. Okay. Any other questions out there? All right, I'm going to put a link to our feedback survey in the chat. If you guys will please complete that. We appreciate that, and it will also give you a link to receive your certificate. We do have a couple minutes, so we'll hold on just a couple minutes before we end the session for everybody and see if we have any additional questions coming in. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar and that you learned something new or you got what you expected to get today. Okay, I do not see any other questions coming in.